Hi there. This is Jen Hayward. Welcome to the Jen Hayward Show. I'm Jen Hayward. It's Friday night. It's the 5th of February. We're still in a pandemic, and I have a wonderful guest today. His name is David Meyer. He'll be on here soon. I like to talk and just ramble for a little bit while we get people in an audience. So for people who come in, who are watching, if you're watching from my personal webpage, then please, you can do it. Hi, Christina. You can't actually make comments that I can see them. I can go back and forth to Facebook, but I'm using StreamYard. So I'm really trying to get people to go to either YouTube, The Jen Hayward Show, or my Facebook page, The Jen Hayward Show. It's magic that it's doing it in all three places. So I'll have David up here right away, and then we're going to chat Hedgefund. My husband's going to mute that. Thank you. So again, if you want to have thank you. We're going to have interaction. So like this, Christina said, hi, hon. You need to go again to the Jen Hayward Show, not just Jen Hayward, the person, on YouTube or Facebook. So before I bring David out, it's been a crazy day. I woke up to another killer day. And the reason I get so excited when our board at Go For It, sorry, that's our sponsor. I don't know how that works. On the screen, our sponsor at Go For It Deliveries, which I own, is I get so excited because when our board is lit up, we have different revenue streams. But when the board, the on-demand board, has 110, 150 orders, that means it's all local businesses. So that means that people are buying more. And yes, we're expanding our customer base, but I will tell you, when I'm seeing multiple orders from many of our vendors, it makes me really happy because it means that people are supporting local during a pandemic. So keep doing that. If you want a list of people that we deliver for, I don't have one, but ask me and I'll tell you, but it's something we're working on. So there's been a thing on the news and called GameStop, and I have now read 4 articles on it, and it didn't make sense, but David Meyer actually helped me understand what a hedge fund was. So I was kind of like behind, bucking the trends. I didn't even know what that was. And so I wanted to have him on my show, but also I don't know him, never met him, except for on Facebook. And I like what he's saying because he's right now where my mindset is, and he and I will be talking a bit about that. But I find a lot of inspiration from what he says. And then I found a little more about him. I said, you know what, this is someone I'd like to have on the show. And like me, I do very little research before I go on because I like this to be very organic. And so I got the information. I have his name is spelled right on camera, so I'm ready to go. So everyone, please welcome David Meyer. Hi, David.
Hello, Jen. Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
That's good. You have a little reverberation. I don't know what that is, but did I say reverberation again? Man alive.
That's too bad. I'm on my phone and I'm in a sort of a empty kind of a room. I hope that's not the issue.
Oh, I think it just got better. So maybe if you're closer to your phone, I don't know, but that's okay. Well, how are you? Yeah, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, a bit of a blustery evening out there right now. The wind's blowing out at our farm here.
I guess so. That's nice. You don't live in the city with us city folk. So everyone, we're going to be talking with David about hedge funds, about executive coaching, about organic gardening, maybe some yoga. I don't know where the conversation will take us. But if you can do me a favor, press share where you are and tell other people about the conversation. And again, I'll say it 5 times throughout. If you want to make comments and want me to engage or David to engage, you have a question, go to the Jen Hayward Show on Facebook, not my personal. Okay, so we're going to start with David. So let's start with the first thing that I was very confused about was hedge funds. And you owned a hedge fund, and it wasn't run by Sonic. That's an awful joke, but thank you. I had to learn what a hedgehog was. Go for it. We're all about the rodents here. But so how did you get into the hedge fund business?
Well, I actually started out in the mining business. I'm a mining engineer and did all this sort of the usual career track in mining, and worked out in the bush and prospected and started little mining companies and it's a fairly common career track in Canada. We're a mining. Canada is a sort of a traditional mining country, and then ultimately I went back to school, and I started getting involved a little bit at sort of higher levels of the mining industry, a little bit more involved in the finance side of it, and then I went back and did a master's in finance, or it was actually a master's in engineering and finance, and I ended up in capital markets, in financial services, and that's actually a fairly typical career track, or a common career track, because mining is a very capital intensive industry, and it costs a fortune to build these mines, and obviously they have to get financing from the Canadian banks or from other banks. And a lot of times the banks don't have the expertise in house, so they're the mining guys, mining engineers are going to work in the bank. But I had gone and done some graduate work in finance, and I ended up as a investment banker for a while, sort of financing companies, and just providing finance for people who needed it, for companies that needed it, primarily in the mining space. And then ultimately some friends and I started a hedge fund. It was basically a little bit of a different structure than some of the funds that you're hearing about on the news right now. It was a private hedge fund. It was sort of more of a corporate structure, and a little bit more of a private equity firm. We focused on sort of private equity, developing little mining companies, and moving projects forward, putting them in public companies, or putting them in a company and taking them public, etc., and then building the mines. And we actually were dividending out the shares of the newcos to our private hedge fund shareholders. I'm sure that means absolutely nothing to
you. But I know about dividends because I play the game Stock Ticker. 1929.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, like the structure of it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. You're asking about the sort of the current hedge fund situation. It's in the news really because a lot of big hedge funds are took some bets against some of these stocks. What's called going short. They sold shares that they didn't own. They borrowed the stock and sold it. And and when they're short the stock, then these sort of redditors, the unwashed masses can see these short positions and decide to try and squeeze them, because if they run the price up, the company, these hedge funds don't own the stock, and they're going to have to buy it back. So that puts a lot of upward pressure on the stock, and so it's called a short squeeze, and it's nothing new. It's just that these guys are sort of Joe Public, or these punters are getting together in an organized way and trying to kind of stick it to these hedge funds, and they were reasonably successful with this GameStop thing and a couple of other ones, and so successful they actually managed to bust a couple of hedge funds. And all I can say is I never went short. My fund was never short, so I don't, and for a good reason. And so I'm afraid there's no love lost between hedge fund managers. I don't feel sorry for these guys. They probably shouldn't have been short, and they got trapped, and good for them.
Well, yeah, it seems to be like a weird system. Like I obviously can't just go start a hedge fund, but when you're betting against companies, because isn't the whole point of the stock market to raise capital for your business so that you have more money for your business? But then it's about the valuation and what someone will pay for the stock. But how much of that does the company get? Like, did GameStop get a whole bunch of money from that, or was it just all about the investing?
Well, no, I mean GameStop. I mean the purpose of the stock market in general is to raise money for the companies, of course. And so they're when they go public, obviously they're selling their shares to the public to raise money for the company, and the public becomes a big shareholder in the company. I mean, when you start a company and it's private, you're the big shareholder, maybe a few other partners or shareholders. But once you go public, you don't own much of the company anymore. You're just managing it. You got a board of directors, and the owners are actually the public shareholders. but since the nature of people is and society is that they and groups like bankers, which I was for many years, they get an idea in their head about some other way of manipulating things and playing some games, and you end up with hedge funds doing these sort of aggressive things to try and make money. And frankly, it's sort of in my opinion, sort of defeats the purpose of the hedge fund, because the hedge is supposed to be a sort of an anti-risk mechanism, and doing a naked hedge is you can't get any riskier. Like that's insanely risky.
So a naked hedge is that's like where you're voting against something, like stopping.
Well, meaning a naked short means that you're short the stock, but you have no hedge on it at all. You're just short the stock, and if the stock goes to the moon, that I described it one time. I'll tell you a funny story, because I know this is sort of your style. I hope you find this funny. I was speaking to a high school class one time, and one of the kids in the class obviously was into this kind of stuff, and he said, "Well, did your fund ever go short?" And I said, "Nope." And he said, "Why not?" And I said, "Well, because here's the way I would describe it." I said, if you're short the stock, meaning that you've sold stock that you don't own. If you're short the stock and the stock goes to the moon, like goes up, it can go up as high, it can go up unlimited. Like GameStop went from a couple of bucks to like $500, and it could have gone higher. I mean, it could have gone higher. I mean, wow. It's insane that it was $500 because it's not worth, like in terms of the revenue and the annual revenue in the company, the stock's worth about $10 a share maximum, and maybe 15, on an optimistic day, but it's not worth $500 a share, like on the fundamentals of the company. But it could have gone higher just on speculative. Right, and these guys would have been buried if it had gone to a couple of $1,000. They have to buy. You have to buy the stock back at whatever the price is in order to fill the commitment that you have on these stocks. So anyway,
how is that not? Oh, you have a story. Sorry, carry on.
So anyway, I said to the guy, I said, going short and being wrong is like how getting a divorce actually is that you don't just lose sort of half of what you don't just sort of give away half of what you have. You sort of, it's almost unlimited to what you're going to give away, right? Because the stock can go to the home can go up forever. And anyway, the fact is it's an insanely risky position to have, and nobody feels sorry for those guys. They shouldn't have had those positions in there. I mean, there are some other issues in the market which I think you were sort of alluding to, is that, and I kind of feel this way. I mean, I was a participant in this market, and you have to have certain views on things, and I think it's being misused. The whole market is being misused. It's become a bit of a casino, and it sort of fits in with some of the views. Yeah, well, it just. I'm probably a bit more like Warren Buffett in terms of the way I look at things. I'm kind of a believer in these systems, and I don't really believe in corruption and the abuse of these systems. I mean, people are going to do it, and that's what regulation is for. And there's a reason for that. And what happens is if everything turns into a complete casino, then nobody trusts anything anymore, and nobody trusts the systems. And I think that, frankly, that's kind of where we're at right now in our society. Is that all these systems have been abused and corrupted, and nobody kind of trusts anything anymore. And I think that you have to get that back. You have to get that trust back. And that's the next thing that we need to do.
Well, neat. Okay, no, that definitely helps. So I was interested in that from that level, but you have like a lot of complexities. So I want to talk first about your currently where you live and what you're doing, and then I want to talk coaching, and hopefully we can talk some business. You own. Actually, I did a little banner for it.
Oh, cool.
There you go. Harlem's don't get, and everyone again, if you want to ask any questions, go ahead, but you have to be on the Jen Hayward Show, and feel free to share away. So you turned in the hedge fund business, and you started with your wife. And how long have you been married, may I ask? Or
How long have I been married? Oh,
yeah.
25 years, give or take.
25 years. So you and your wife, I just wasn't sure if you started and if she joined, but you and your wife.
Yeah, no. We've been together a long time, and we were in Toronto. I was based out of Toronto, but the hedge fund was sort of a global hedge fund. So I was, I did a lot of traveling. I went everywhere. I mean, I probably ended up placing, I don't know, 20 or 30 billion dollars in investments and all over the world, and building projects and multiple commodities, almost every country of the world, certainly every region, over 25 years or so. And saw a lot of different parts of the world, a lot of different kinds of industries, dealt with an awful lot of different kind of people, from sort of regular people up in the building mining projects in Africa and South America, right up to bank chairmen and heads of state of some of these countries. And it's an interesting existence. And when we were based in Toronto, we lived in Toronto, we raised the kids in Toronto, and then I just sort of hit this point in my life, to be honest with you, where I realized, I kind of woke up one morning and I realized that the people side of it, of the banking, was more interesting to me, and always had been, than the number side. That was really what the impetus was for me. I mean, you have to be pretty good at the number side. I'll tell you that. You can't really be a banker if you're not good at that. But I realized that it was the people side, that was the sort of human interaction part, that was really interesting to me. Human nature, and the strength of people, and finding out what people were good at and marrying that up with somebody else, and etc. So that was what was of interest to me. And we'd actually been, in some of this traveling that I'd been doing for a lot of years, I got really interested in the bed and breakfast concept. I'd actually started staying at bed and breakfast when I was traveling on business, because I was bored of staying in these sterile hotel rooms. I mean, I have to admit, I stayed in some pretty nice hotels.
You're like, I don't want this bidet. I want to stay where other people live. That's awesome.
No, it was way more interesting to me to do that. I mean, because it was the people.
And you get breakfast.
It was the people part. What's that?
And you get breakfast, so it's a win-win.
Well, sure. No, I mean, it was the people part of it. Like, you meet somebody, but you meet somebody in the local area. I give you an example. I had a lot of business down in Cape Town in South Africa, and I was there quite a bit. And I was down there for a meeting, and I decided to go out and stay at this fishing village down about 45 minutes outside of Cape Town. A little place called Hermanus, a beautiful little fishing village outside of Cape Town, and stayed at a B&B there. And I woke up on the Saturday morning, and the owner, who was actually a former banker, said, "I'm going out abalone hunting this morning, on the beach." And I said, "Well, what's that?" And, he told me what it was, and I said, "Yeah, can I come along?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And we went looking for these things in the surf, and came back and cooked them up and everything. I just went like, "That's awesome. That was, what a great way to spend a Saturday morning and meet somebody and learn about how they do things locally." That's fascinating to me. So anyway, the answer was, I sort of I sold out of the fund. I sold my position out of the fund. I mean, it still sort of exists in a slightly modified form still. It's just I'm not involved in it. And we came out here. I actually grew up in Kingston, Ontario. So Eastern Ontario's kind of home. I know the kind of the culture and the whatever. I left after high school, but I grew up, as a boy in Kingston, so I know the area, and I got family around here and stuff. So it was kind of my sister lives up in Ottawa, and whatever. So we bought this place here. It's a beautiful historic stone farmhouse, and a 50-acre farm, and it's a luxury B&B sort of. If you just look at at the reviews, and you'll see it's sort of oriented towards
I
like
did. I
personalized
looked. You
service.
sent a picture on my web or on my Facebook as a comment one day when I was looking, and you said, "Come on out." And I looked, and I was like, "My anniversary is coming up," and I'm like, "If I can misplace one of the teens so they don't burn the house down, I might just go with or without my husband." But
Yeah,
no, it looked really
no,
nice.
I'd love to have you. Yeah, no,
We're gonna
it's sort of
try.
yeah, we sort of it's sort of an oasis a little bit for. I mean, a lot of our customers we were getting a lot of people coming from Europe and stuff. I mean, I advertise, or I say I because I'm sort of the one who's been I've been doing the marketing. My wife has given me that task, especially on social media. And I market the thing, as sort of a global thing. Like I'm used to functioning in a global environment, and I
You're a
understand
destination
how.
stop.
What's that?
You're a destination stop then in
Yeah,
Ontario.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. We're sort of marketing it. I mean, I'm marketing the area as much as I'm marketing our B&B, right? And trying to introduce people to the area. And I mean, some people. I mean, like Toronto people, most of them have never been out this way. Most of them don't know that anything exists between Oshawa and Montreal. It's a bit of a surprise to them.
They're like, "Here's a nice
Come out
house."
here and come out for a visit, and that's fine. I'm sort of trying to market the charms of this area, and there are quite a few. Yeah, we're just up in the Rideau Lakes area, just near the town of Portland. It's a farm property, and quite a nice quiet road called Harlem Road, and I think the
I
Harlem
wondered
kind
where
of
the
appreciate.
Harlem came from. So I was like, I don't know, maybe he likes basketball, but no.
No, we actually. I mean, it's the road, but I love the whole vibe of Harlem, New York. I love the jazz and the all that stuff. So that kind of appealed to me, that aspect of it. But it has nothing to do with Harlem, New York. Just the
Yeah,
name of
yeah.
the name. There's actually a little hamlet. There was an old town nearby called Harlem, I guess. And this is Harlem Road. So anyway,
Harlem Road,
we're
yeah.
50-acre farm, and we do the traditional B&B. We've got 3 rooms here. We reduced it to 2 because 2 of them have a shared bath, and with COVID that wasn't gonna like a hall bathroom, and that wasn't gonna work. So we went down to 2, and now of course unfortunately we're shut down with the lockdown at the moment, just waiting to open back up again, and we got plenty of pent up interest of people to come and stay with
Oh, I
us,
imagine
and
everybody
we're
is anywhere their kids are not, but adding the luxury to it, and it's quite there. Well, so and that's Harlem Stonegate B&B. Is that I
yeah.
had it up there, yeah. And so anyone can go there, or not go there, but look ahead for your romantic or your just getaway, which every mom wants to. But let's talk business, because you've basically taken a very interesting life. So you were mining. And traveled the world. So you've learned this sort of global investment perspective. So then you started, and I like that it's executive coaching. Let me get the exact words. A high performance executive coach. I know I saw on your thing, you and your wife are both like very athletic. I don't know if you knew this, but I was an elite athlete as a child. I
Well,
was.
I heard it on your talk the other day with Jason. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, I kayaked. What are you gonna do? And then
Yes,
I
cool. I
decided.
was actually a rower. I was a rower
Okay.
myself in Gibson.
So yeah, we saw you guys out there. We're like, that's too easy. This is, but I was also
So
like, I was Western Canadian
I
champion.
definitely
Yeah,
I definitely get it, Jen. I definitely
yeah.
know what you're talking about. So.
And then I discovered boys and alcohol and food, and then I gained weight to 400 pounds, and now I'm here. But
What?
yeah, no, I used to weigh 400 pounds, and then now I don't. Go with the number. But I lost 210 pounds. COVID
Wow.
gained about 20, but now I'm sort of back on
And
track.
you know what? That's incredible. That's incredible. That is so awesome. Good for you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, I don't because so people are just I forget people didn't know that, right? I was like, here's
Well,
my thing.
I heard it the other night when I was listening to your talk with Jason.
Yeah, I always said I was always pretty, but it's just a different. Now I'm like, it's just different. I used to have like body dysmorphia when I was losing the weight too. Like
Right.
and now I just look how I look. I don't even wear makeup. Like it's just whatever. I'm a busy businesswoman, so. So when you're doing your high performance, I guess I've really liked the things you've been saying, because like it has not been a great 7 months for it. No, sorry, I have to say it's been a very interesting 7 months. I always try and look at, well, you know what, it wasn't easy, but we got through what we needed to get through to come out on the other side. And so when, I've had coaches, what would you say a difference between like a general business coach and a high executive performance consultant? What would be the main differences?
Well, let me just tell you. I mean, there's sort of two components to the work that I'm doing. One is the executive coaching,
Yeah.
and that's more like your typical kind of like life coach,
Mm-hmm.
But the reason, the nature of the executive coaching is that I'm working a lot with people who are sort of executives or entrepreneurs, and they're already oriented towards the business side of things, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, as you're probably finding, trying to be an entrepreneur and have a family and or if you were an executive, C-suite, a senior executive with a company, these are incredibly demanding things, like incredibly demanding lifestyles, right?
Yeah.
And so the executive coaching is sort of focused on helping people to build the skills that they need to function at that level, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there are some skills. I mean, the simple thing I think that people forget, it's all what you've been exposed to. But if you thought about it, and this is a big part of my practice, and the reason why I think that I'm, what I offer that some potentially other coaches don't offer, is that I have functioned at that level for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what is required to function at that level. And I'm telling you that a lot of senior executives have, I mean, they're pretty good at what they do. They've figured out how to function at that level. And good for them. I mean, obviously you have to have a certain skill set to be able to run a big company and that sort of thing. But a lot of them are kind of compensating for a lot of things. They've made some modifications to the way they do things, in order to function at that level. But a lot of people still have unresolved issues. They kind of push stuff down, childhood issues, etc., to be able to function at that level. And some of them are not very well-adjusted people, but they're able to do the job, etc. Right? But there's kind of, and some of them aren't. Some of them hit the wall at a certain point, right? So there's a certain skill set for running the functioning at that level, in terms of organization, organizing your time. You obviously have to have some pretty good self-belief. You have to have pretty good resilience and that sort of thing. But a lot of times people are, the traditional life coaching aspect of it is looking at, what else people want to do in their life. I mean, I've worked with people on the relationship side of their of their life. They're running a business, but they're having trouble with their relationship. I mean, I can tell. I mean, trying to be an entrepreneur, to try and grow a company when you've got problems with your marriage. I mean, it's not an easy thing. I'm sure. So,
Well, I can imagine. Well, I think I shared with you a bit of our story. I mean, in a nutshell, the reason we became entrepreneurs was basically what a lot of people are having to do now in the pivot sense. Was we both lost our jobs. I'd left the government already, went to the nonprofit world. We lost funding. It was right after my surgery, and we have really high needs kids that we adopted from. But I mean, emotional problems. And so even keeping our nonprofit jobs was difficult, because I'm fielding calls from social workers, teachers, doctors, eventually police officers, you name it. And so we started our business because of all of those needs. And so it was always just okay, we're doing that. I guess this is what we're doing now. Like, there was no passion. And I've learned and I've evolved, and we came through. I had no idea what I was doing. None. Smart, learn quickly. But when I began, it was just hustle and save the family. And we did what we could. And then as we've learned the bumps, but I think the most I've learned is the last 7 months, when I've been able to, especially even the last 3 weeks, I've actually been able to sit back and think about what's happened in the past year since COVID, right? And it's literally like I've ran my business 5 different times because it's just kept evolving and I haven't been able to keep up. And so that's where I'm coming with this, is that now, and that's why I'm drawn to your post and your sort of philosophy, is because I had a really big mental block that people didn't really understand because I present so I'm authentic, but people just would, she's smart, she'll figure it out. And it's not that I can't figure finances out. It's that I had a block that, like, literally I would cry. I had this poverty mentality, and I had almost as big a fear of success as I did of failure. Kind
That's,
of like,
by the way, Jen, that's very, very common stuff. That's probably one of the most common blockages that people have, and it's the nature of the imagery in our society, right? But anyway, I just carry on.
No, and that's what you had said. So that's where. So I had a potential investor look at our business, and it was just because, and it was out of desperation, and just our books weren't ready, and that's fine. But I remember thinking, I don't really want to work with this guy, but I'm so desperate. And I think one of the things you said in the banking industry, and then also, is that, it's sort of like not just that you have the ability to match people. So it's not just finding an investor, it's finding the right investor. Where we won't be ready for a while, but when we do, I think it has to be someone, because I watched the Dragon's Den or whatever. And I think for us, or for anyone else, it has to be someone that's one, you'll have to work well with, but there has to be some reason the investor's coming on beyond money. Like, there has to be some fit, because there's an infinite amount of places they could spend their money. Why on you? Is it not just the money, or is there personality, is my question?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting, topic of discussion. I mean, I basically, I was the dragon for 15 years. I mean, that's what when as a fund manager, that's essentially what I was doing. Was, we were investing in companies, and guys would come and pitch their deal to us. I mean, the mechanism of watching Dragon's Den, it's all very familiar to me.
Yeah.
And I even know a couple of those guys. Like Mike Weckerly's a really good friend of mine. He's not on the show anymore, but he was on for a while. And I was fascinated to watch him on the show. He's an interesting guy. He was in all of our deals for years. I know him really well. And I've probably pitched him 50, 60 deals myself over the years when he was a senior guy over at Griffiths McBurney Capital. But anyway, so the mechanism of sort of people pitching the deals to me is very familiar to me. And listen, a lot of the times it's people, right? It's the people. And I mean, if I would urge anybody who's an entrepreneur, or even thinking of being an entrepreneur, to watch Dragon's Den and watch it seriously, like really watch it.
Not for the guide you to Google half the terms. That's how I learned some things. So
yeah, well, I don't even mean so much the terms, right? Because I'm one of these people. Like, if you watch the show and you're watching, that these guys pitch the deal, and there's only 2 things I can tell you that they're really looking for. One, of course, you see them writing down some of the numbers right away, right? Because you got to be pretty good on the numbers, right? And the guy's pitching them a deal for, maybe 15% of the company for a couple $100,000 or something like that. That puts a valuation on the company, right? So they're just kind of doing the math to see whether that investment makes sense. But the next big thing, and if you ever watch the show, the people who really flame out badly, that it's almost painful to watch. I mean, I'm sure that some people watch it. They're not even looking at the business aspect of it. They're watching it like one of these reality shows, to see somebody's misery, and the people that really do just blow up completely, and it's painful to watch, are the people who they won't listen. They're stuck. They're not listeners. And that's probably why they're in the problems that they're in, right? And some of these, some of the shows that the dragons will say, they're basically trying to save these people from themselves. I mean, there's some pretty honest moments there where they're saying to the guy, like, your business idea is stupid, like it's a bad idea. and stop working on it anymore. You know, like
I love
you're just
those.
you're gonna
Yeah.
blow every penny you got, and stop doing that. And the reason why the guy's in the problem in the first place is because he wouldn't listen to anybody, right?
Yeah.
And he's not going to listen now. And it's excruciating, but you know, what can you do, right? I mean, I hate to see that, but so one of the things that, so obviously part of it is your character, right? Like if you're a listener or not. If you're not, you know, you're going to have trouble, and like humility and listening to people, right? And but that has a lot to do with your self-esteem and your and you know, so people are trying to do kind of two things at once. They've got their own issues, and they're trying to run a company, which is a whole nother issue, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a like I was actually speaking to a guy the other day. It was on one of these forums on Facebook, which by the way is a very new world for me. I was a very private banker for a lot of years, and I really was hiding in the shadows for most of my life. And I
And now you're
to
like,
to be out there on
yeah.
yeah, to be out there marketing, you know, you know, the B&B and marketing myself. It's been an interesting experience. It's good for me. But
That's how you meet people.
I mean, what's
Without
that?
well, no, without social media, I would never have been introduced to you through the
Yeah, of
business.
course. Yeah,
That's
no,
the
I mean,
reality. Is that's how it's breaking barriers between those, you know, who have never had this experience and those who it's a good thing as long as you don't argue about everything.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, anyway, as I say, I sort of forgot exactly we were talking about. But what I will say, what I will say is that that is, you know, when I think you and I were talking about the brand, you know, like sort of building your personal brand, because really that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Like it's your personality, and that's one of the reasons why, like, that's what I'm all about. I mean, I probably have a, you know, the old I still call it a Rolodex. That tells you how old I am. It's not a Rolodex anymore. It's on my phone, but you know, I mean, I've got a pretty good Rolodex of people that I mean, it was, you know, my investors in the fund investors that were invested with me, and a bunch of other deals that I did, you know, and you know, thousands of other potential investors in, you know, in Switzerland, Dubai, you know, all the other money centers in London, etc. And when I when I exited the fund, you know, a lot of these people just went, you know, okay, well, what are you doing next? And I said, oh, I'm going to open up a B&B, and I'm going to try some organic farming and whatever. They said, okay, cool. You know, when you're all set up, tell us about it. We'll come and see you, right? We'll come, you know, and that's that's the brand, right? That's when you're the brand. When you're, you know, and that's what investment banking is. You know, it's about sort of saying, well, this person would match with this person. You know what I mean? Like if you were looking for an investor, and I think that's what you were talking about, is that, you know, you're out there looking, you're looking for, you go out there looking for financing for your company, et cetera, or a partner or whatever. And it has to be a fit, right? Like it has to be somebody who sort of gets your vision, right? Like and that's the idea, is to match up, you know, to say, well, I know this person pretty well, and I know, and I sort of have a vibe. I'm pretty quick on the uptake. I understand people pretty well after you meet and deal with probably, you know, tens of thousands of people over 30 years. You know, I'm a pretty good judge of. I understand people. I understand people and that sort of thing, and I've got so many cool friends and contacts all over the world, and the first thing I think of when I see somebody who's doing some cool thing, or they're just a cool person, I think, yeah, I got to introduce them to somebody. I know somebody who would love what that person's doing, right? That's what investment banking is, right? And I do
that naturally without money. So I mean, I should have been an investment banker, but no, I don't know.
Maybe you should have.
Maybe I should have. I thought I was dumb till I was 21, and then I went to university, and turns out I was wrong. But that was my reality, right? But I like that. I like when you meet someone, it's like it shows for me to who you are as a person. It's not just, it's like if you see something really neat and you think of someone you can connect, then you automatically are wanting to help two people, right? So you're like, oh, you know who you should talk to is so and so. Even about small things, I do that sort of thing, and I know other people who do that, and it's just a natural inclination to want to help other people, or in my case, control and dominate the world. But it just really depends on your perspective. But I like that. I think that's a really good thing. Yeah.
Well, I think but the key thing is when I say that's what investment banking is, the difference is that it's the discipline to actually to do your homework. I hope I'm explaining that properly. Like that, like I'll talk when I'm talking with people locally, whether it's here or whatever, if I'm in this area or in this region or whatever, and I say, they don't really know what investment banking is. They maybe saw it on some TV show or something because,
Yeah.
Toronto's the financial services, Bay Street is a bit of a different world, right? I mean, frankly, I didn't realize what a bubble I lived in for 20 years until I got out of it, to be honest with you. But anyway, so people sort of say, oh, well, all these people, these investors, bring them out here. And I could use some money. And I'm going like, it doesn't work that way.
It's not just a Rolodex of, all right, we're going to.
I don't think you're getting the point. I said, the reason why I have those contacts is because I had the discipline over the years that these are clients of mine. Right. Yeah. And I worked those clients for 20 years sometimes, and I know whether, how old their kids are and, where their money is parked and what kind of stuff they look at and what they hate and, that kind of thing. It's a job, right? And I'm saying like, no, the answer is to your question is I'm not going to introduce that person to you because what are you going to pitch them? I mean, why would I introduce them to you? Like, have you got an idea? Like, I mean, is your idea really any good? Like, or are you just going to pitch them some stupid thing that's going to embarrass me, right? I mean, it sounds harsh, but that's the discipline of that job.
No, if you're going to waste anyone's time, like, even if you're
it's my reputation.
Absolutely.
It's wasting my time and my clients, and my clients' time, right? And that's what people have to business owners. I mean, we'll get to sort of, the current situation. I have some views on that, but just in general, and I mean, and this fits into it because this is just in general at any time. You have to create, you have to create yourself as the brand, right? So that's what that's what executive coaching is getting you sort of making sure that you are in the right headspace and you're ready to and capable of running a company, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain skills and whatever. I mean, to make sure you're sort of up to speed with running the company, but it's mostly to do with kind of your headspace, and the biggest part of coaching that I do is visualization. Right. And I mean, I can get into sort of some of these other potential coaches that are out there. I have certain views on some of that. I mean, that there's kind of the bread and butter kind of coach, the sort of the government apparatchik coach that sort of their job is to get, small businesses going and stuff like that. They're not particularly, imaginative people, let's say, right? They've got a formula, they got a piece of paper that that whoever the bank that they're working for issues to them, and it says, this is the kind of money you should give to this person, and they don't share your vision, right? Like they could care less what your vision is. Like in fact they already have a vision for what your company should be, right? Because they don't want you to grow fast, right? Because that might put you at risk, and that might put their money at risk, and this sort of thing, right? They're visionless people, right? And so what I'm looking at is, properly envisioning the growth of your company, and because I've been there, I've grown, dozens and dozens and dozens of companies myself, right? Taking them public, and from little companies to multi-billion-dollar companies, right? And that's the key thing, is when I say to think big, right?
Yeah.
That's the most
like
important thing.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing you can do. Is why not think big? Like if your company's worth running, why wouldn't it be worth running a big company? The only difference is that you have to be sort of prepared to if you've thought this out, you have to be prepared to run a company that size. There's no reason why you can't, but you certainly have to have envisioned it properly, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I think that the majority of the people who run into problems with their business idea is that they haven't really thought it out properly, right? I mean, a lot of small business people have not had any formal business training at all, right? I mean, they just sort of said, I want to start a business, and I want to get going on it. And they start it, and they kind of limp through. But there's a lot to it, right? In terms of the what's all the components that are required, and financing and growth, and I mean, this on the simplest level. When I'm looking, I think I put a post on this a few times, is to say there's a hell of a difference between starting a company and starting a good company. Like a good idea, right? And there's no, if you're trying to make a bad idea work, there's no amount of work that you can put on the details that are going to make it work. Like you can stay up every night, or you can slave away in your company, and if you're making donuts or something like that, if it's not working, it's not going to work, right? If it's a bad idea, it's not going to work. And a lot of the business coaching that I'm doing right now in terms of pivoting is to look pretty hard at that stuff, and basically tell these business owners that you have to start thinking like a serial entrepreneur rather than a business owner, right? You're an owner, right? You're an investor in this company, and the purpose of starting a company is to grow your net worth, like your personal net worth. If that isn't happening, shut that business down or make some kind of radical change or whatever. But you have to look at that company pretty hard and say, is this working under this environment?
For sure. Can you shake your phone or something? It's kind of cutting out again, the sound. Yeah, this phone.
Yeah, it might be. It may be an internet connection thing too.
It could be. Yeah, it's okay now. Yeah. No, I think what you said is really interesting. I was on another podcast the other day, and I was talking about this, and I said the reality is that not every business is going to make it out of COVID. That is the reality. There are some businesses that may end up, just depending how long this goes, they may end up obsolete, that business, but that business isn't them. And that's where that whole pivoting thing, I think, comes in. But I mean, this isn't the first time this kind of thing has happened, right? There's mass layoffs with Nortel. The entire auto industry went. Whatever's happening with the oil industry right now and the switch to clean renewable energy. So this isn't the first time where people's businesses or livelihoods have been affected negatively. It's just maybe more with the government controls now. And so I like the story of the company that's had inflatable, toys, or what, not toys, that's for Wicked Wandas, but inflatable, like bouncy castles and things like that. That's not a business that's going to bounce back right away, so to speak, because of germs, things like that. And so, but they also had other things. They said, well, what can we do? And so they had a cotton candy maker. So they said, let's just do this. And they started making some cotton candy to help hustle their way out. It doesn't mean that their business won't come back at later, but they weren't going to just leave it. So is that a good thing to do, to have some side hustles while this is going on? Or
absolutely. Because that's you, right? You have to survive. Like you're whatever, you're a parent or whatever, you've got family commitments or whatever. I mean, it's you that has to survive. If you got to shut one business down to survive, you got to do that, right? I mean, like the only thing that matters is your survival, right? And so, what I'm telling people is, I mean, look, the biggest part, as I say in the coaching, that a business coaching that I'm doing is to visualize, right? And I'm trying to tell the people that I'm working with, particularly the people who are not real sort of entrepreneur type people. They're kind of business owners, right? I mean, some of these people maybe inherited their restaurant from their parents or whatever, and they've been running under the same kind of paradigm for 40 years or whatever, and nothing much has changed, and etc. And all of a sudden it has.
Yeah.
And these people have, they're just like a deer in the headlights, right? They just have no idea what to do. And they're running around trying to get this government help, and which I just detest. I mean, if you can get it, good. If you can get involved in that, I just don't like it because it's usually just supporting some business that's not viable, right? And it's just prolonging the agony. I mean, if it's debt, it's just going to put you more in debt, and I just don't like the idea of it. Like, so what I'm telling these people is, okay, well, let's look at how you're going to pivot this business. The first thing is let's understand your market, right? Like, meaning that if your business isn't working, have you looked at every other person who's trying to do your business? And I don't mean in your area. Forget your area, because your area might self-destruct. Like your area that you're living in might not be viable anymore. I mean, that's the kind of thing you have to consider. Like, I'm saying, looking globally at anybody who's running that business, what are they doing, right? I mean, I've dealt with some restaurant people, right? And I said, okay, well, look at what's Gordon Ramsay doing? That guy, he owns 10 restaurants, and most of them have been shut down for X number of months, right? I mean, he's probably bleeding like crazy, right? I mean, I don't know the guy, but I watch him enough, and I understand, what he's probably doing with his empire. And so what's he doing? Well, he's ramping up his shows, right? He's monetizing his TV sort of persona, right? He's doing his shows. He's doing a whole bunch of videos that he's probably getting paid somehow for.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pivot, right? And I see a lot of restaurants that are doing takeout and stuff. Okay, all good. It's all about the numbers. Are the numbers working? Like, from month to month, how's your revenue doing? If the revenue's coming in and you're still making money on the bottom line, good for you. If your restaurant that you're paying, that you were paying rent on or whatever, if you could get out of that thing, shut that thing down, take a bath on the rent or whatever. If you can get a relief on that, shut that restaurant down, because it's probably bleeding like crazy, right? These are the hard things that people got to do. You're the entrepreneur, right? You might have 6 businesses running, right? Shut one down, start another one to get some revenue coming in. That's what the kind of the warrior, entrepreneur does, right? It's just it's about you surviving, right? And that's where you gotta understand the businesses.
Do you think it goes further though? Like, so this is where, like, so I mean, that's because I was where a lot of these people were, meaning I only started my business because I had to survive, right? And then we've gone through some really bad choices, and here I am. But in the end, now, and I think you've helped format that just from your posts and some other people, and just where I am is that I don't want to survive anymore. Like, I want to thrive. Like, I want to get way ahead of it. And so, that's what I'm learning. All right, what does company valuation mean? And where do I want to be? Because as much as I love Go For It, and I've come to really love it's just a company, right? It's not who I am. Everything I'm doing,
of course.
Right. But a lot of people, I think, are also stuck in that I have to save this company, but it really is, like you said, it's about us, the people. So in my whole mantra right now is that I don't just want to survive anymore. I want to thrive. Like, I want to make money. I can do good with money. It's getting over that, like that you said, that mindset, that poverty mentality. It took me 4 years. Well, it took me 46 years to get to where I'm like, yeah, I want to make some money now. Let's do this. So.
Well, let me just address a couple of those things that you just said there. One, because I had mentioned this before, that this sort of really typical block that people have, and it's this weird sort of a lot of where people the way that people look at things, right? They're sort of the way they view some of these concepts, is that a lot of it is based on sort of the imagery in our society, right? The myths and the narrative of our society, right? There's a lot of imagery. We're bombarded with this stuff in advertising. A lot of the way we live is this sort of mythology, right? And people are pretty disconnected with sort of their core values. They really haven't thought of those core values. And one of the things that I talk about is I think I've done a post on this sort of thing on the blog that I do, is this sort of pain that people feel, this pain and disconnect that people are feeling on a regular basis. I'm telling you that what it is that what you're doing, your actions don't mesh with your core values. That's what's causing you the pain. That's what all of the bullshit that you see from people, all of the bad behavior, all of the horse shit when you see them, that they're not genuine, they're not authentic. I think that was the term you used. It's because they're not, because they're bullshitting. They're acting in a way that they think they should act because that's what society expects, etc. But they really are disconnected with their core values. So one of these things is to do with wealth, because we've got this weird sort of relationship with wealth and wealthy people and this sort of thing, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I come from that world. I'm not talking about myself per se, but I certainly dealt with an awful lot of very wealthy people. That's the nature of banking, right? And what I tell people who sort of have these kind of weird views of this kind of stuff, is that that have sort of negative view of wealth and wealthy people. I say, on the simplest basis, and you can have any view that you want about our tax system. Is our tax system fair, and whatever? That's fine. You're welcome to have any views on that. I personally think that they probably should pay higher taxes, and a lot of people agree. I mean, Warren Buffett will agree that he should probably pay higher taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's okay. So that's fine. But what I'm saying, and you can have your views on policy. That's fine. But what I'm saying is that the majority of these people, what they really focused on was excellence.
Okay.
That's it. And that is the biggest part of my coaching. And I have this program called the Elevated Person Program. And it sort of looks at kind of how to elevate yourself, because to function at that level, you really have to be functioning at a very high level, right? Yeah. In terms of what you do. And I notice it a lot of times. I mean, I'll kind of coach you on live coaching here, Jen. I'll give you some. I'll do it live here.
All right.
is that this? I've put a post on this before. Is it something to do with the warrior should never speak badly of themselves, or the person shouldn't speak badly of themselves, because the warrior inside you hears that and is lessened by it.
So hard when you're a comedian.
I know, because you're sarcastic and you're cynical, and that's all cool. I get all that.
Can we still make fun of my husband?
No, I get all of that. I get all that, and no, and it's all cool.
Yeah.
But I think at some point, the disconnection that you have to make, is that every once in a while you have to go and do something really kind of pure and romantic, and you know what I mean, to get away from that sort of cynicism, right? Because I'm telling you that the thing that I found in my profession, and in fact the thing that kind of led me into coaching, is that I found like at a senior level of banking, this is sort of, we were kind of the wise guys, like we were the guys that ran everything, right? And there's a huge cynicism in that, right? And I just found a lot of my colleagues really hit the wall on that, because they had kind of money to, I'm sure that it's sort of the same in the entertainment business. If you get to become a great big star, all of a sudden you got some money and you still have your demons, and maybe get into the booze and the drugs and whatever. And
You
you
were
know,
in
so
booze and drugs before you got famous. It's
well,
common.
whatever,
Not me.
whatever. But now,
Yeah.
but now you got the money to do it, right? And everybody around you is enabling you and blah blah blah. You know, it's a you have to have your own sort of personal strength, right?
I, yeah.
And that's what I kind of told a lot of my I deal with guys all the time on this is and because I watched a lot of my colleagues basically hit sort of 60 years old, and they'd basically had their heads down working on their careers for 40 years.
Yeah.
And they woke up at 60 and they got a little bit of money in their pocket and they know how to make money. They're good at that, right? They know how to do that. But they have no idea kind of what they like and, what's good. And they maybe get a little on the dark side and some bad behavior. And I watched an awful lot of my colleagues kind of drink themselves to death. And I thought, well, is that what I want? Is that what I want to do? Is that a good thing? I mean, there's probably more to life. I told a few of these guys, you should coach a kid's soccer team or something like that. Like something nice like that. Otherwise, it's going to kill you. And a few of them just didn't listen, and that's what happened, right? So what I'm saying, so a lot of this kind of elevated person approach is that you have to kind of have some of these. This is your core beliefs and also your kind of the thing that you focus on a daily basis to kind of keep you above the dreck, right? The social media shit, and I mean, it's just a shitty place, right? And you don't want to become cynical. You don't want, and business can be a little cynical too sometimes, right? You get sort of beaten up in your company or whatever, and you got to come home and have something that sort of elevates you above that. And it also has to be reflected in the way that you deal with your employees, right? You got to be a leader, right? And this is what I think we really have. This is sort of brings me back around to the larger issues of society. I think that we have the big thing we've really lost is empathy. That people are completely disconnected to other people. And I put some of it down to, like, have you ever read any of Trump's books?
No.
No, good. Because they're all, it's all the same theme. It's all the same theme. It's fuck everybody else. He's a psycho, right?
Yeah.
He's a psychopath. And
But that's the whole
I'm
80s
saying,
business mentality was, like The Secret of My Success and all the shows we'd watch. It was all about that cutthroat business.
sure, well, it's not even, but it's not cutthroat because I guess, I mean, what I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong with being aggressive with your business and trying to grow your business, but it has to do with how you interact with people. I put a post out the other day saying, like, I know a lot of billionaires. I've dealt with a lot of billionaires, and most of these guys that I dealt with, I will admit a few of them were pretty shady guys, but by and large, the majority of them had never been sued, or maybe a few times just, like on a sort of a routine kind of thing because they were growing their company and somebody sued them to kind of try and lean on them or something like that. But they weren't being sued for being an asshole or being for screwing somebody over.
Mm-hmm.
Trump and his businesses have been sued 2,000 times.
That's a lot of times.
It's a lot of times. I'm not making that number. I'm not making that number up. 2,000 times, and he's sued other people another 2,000 times.
Wow.
And and I said, it's not. So it doesn't have to do with how big your business is or how aggressive you are. It has to do with how you do your business, what kind of a person you are. The guy's an asshole, right?
No, he is,
and so you can conduct your business in a reasonable way. You don't have to do that. It has to do with the personality. And so what I'm saying is that's the model that people are looking at. Young people are looking at that, and I'm saying it doesn't have to be that way. And the result of it is that people are completely without empathy. And that's, I think, what we're going to have to do is get back to looking at how we want to live in our society, right? And it's got to be it's going to come from people enjoying other people. like the friends that you have, or the other people that in your area, and looking at like being a leader, like when you're running your company, right? Your employees, like I'm sure you know some of these people, and you've decided what skills they have, like what are their strengths, and so you've put them in certain roles, having to do with their strengths. That's a very satisfying thing, I'm sure, as a leader, as a business owner, right?
Well, and I agree. And I mean, that's one thing we've done really well is we have a really strong team, a great connection. And I think that lack of empathy and what you said, I think that's the core of society, social media, all that. It has gotten lost for sure. We're not listening to each other, like you said, listening. And it's really easy to get lost in all of that and to not cut through. And there's lots of different ways. So we are out of time. I can't believe we're just chatting away, and it's like, wow, it's over an hour and a half or hour and 5 minutes. But I'd like to leave on that note because I think that's a really good point. So David, where can people do you have a webpage for your consulting, or do they find you through the?
No. The best way is my Facebook page. If people want to just connect with me on Facebook, and if somebody wants to for the B&B, they can. Obviously, all the contact information is on the B&B. If people want so they want to contact me on Facebook, and I'll give them my my personal number. And most of the coaching that I'm doing right now, frankly, is on Zoom or Facebook. Like it's all remote stuff anyway. So
socially distanced. Well, this has been a great chat. I learned a lot, so thank you so much. I'll share it around. Everyone, share it, tag him, and well, I'll keep following you. And I'm sure we have some kind of work we're doing in the future together. But I really appreciate, that inspiration that you give everyone every day. So thank you so much for that. I'm definitely coming to stay there with or without Josh because it looks really peaceful. And I think after this year, we all could use a little peace, right? So.
Well, there was a few, and I just was going to say, Jen, there was a few sort of aspects of the coaching business that I didn't cover. Yeah. And so if people wanted more information on that, just call me. I'm kind of a no pressure kind of guy. Just call me and discuss. I'm not one of these guys that wants to lock you into some contract or whatever. Just call me and ask about
contract, $5,000. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird an hour. We can only get through so much, but you've had such a life that we had to cover some things. But sure. Thank you so much. So yeah, definitely check out to David. And if you have any questions or anything, he's very accessible. I found that. So definitely check out, have a chat with him. He's a great guy. And thank you so much. And on Monday, I believe we have Paul on, and we're both going to talk about our CRA stories and how to avoid those mistakes. You see, I caught myself when I said dumb. Mistakes. So thank you all very much. Thank you, David. You have a great, peaceful weekend at the farm, and we'll see you all later. And everybody floss. Thanks.
Okay. Bye, Jen.
Bye-bye.